Hi, this is Dr. B with your Emotional Minutes, and welcome back. And currently, as this is being filmed, it's been about a week and a half since George Floyd was killed. So there's been a lot of protesting, and a couple people have asked me, first of all, what I think about it, and then also, why is there so much unrest around it? And of course, it is a difficult topic and something that would bring up a lot of anger. And first off, I really want to say that I actually do agree with the protesters and that they're really getting at something that has been an inherent injustice in our society for many, many years. In this clip, my intent isn't to necessarily give my opinion on that. And we all have opinions on things, so we are human. But I really want to kind of talk about this from a behavioral science perspective, and particularly reasons behind the disagreement portion, and sort of why two sides are kind of yelling at each other about these things, or getting very angry with each other about some of these things. And there's a lot of really interesting research in social psychology where they look at something called attribution. And attribution is basically a fancy word to say sort of reasons that we give ourselves as to why things happen. And so a lot of people, just kind of depending on our experience and our history, a lot of people will have sort of different reasons or different attributions that they give for why something happens. And so one of the ways attribution is often viewed is actually as a very beneficial thing. And like anything with human psychology or humans at all, is nothing is perfect. So even though attribution can help us kind of quick think through situations, it can also bring up errors, or it can bring up things where different people are having different attributions and then they clash over them. In terms of, if we look at just the protests and not the riots, but if we look at sometimes when people are protesting and then other people are really intensely disagreeing with those protests. And so the people who disagree with the protesters might say things like, they're being disrespectful of society. They just don't care about the law. And then other times, on the other side, there might be, a lot of attributions or explanations for things might center around, we should be able to protest because we've gotten mistreated in society or marginalized in society, or the conditions we're experiencing are not really fair. And so there's kind of two different explanations that each side gives each other. So what can often happen with attributions that can lead to a lot of clashes is that we as humans can really buy into the explanations that we give ourselves to things and really get kind of set on those one or two kind of key explanations for why an event is happening. And so the reasons that we give to things can often really be solidified or really strengthened in a large way by what we call in-group, out-group differences. And this just really means how we identify with one group or one position and how we see ourselves in that group or identifying with that position, and how that does not fit with other groups that people might be a part of. But then oftentimes when we get so kind of centered in and really believing that explanation, then it can make us not really be open to other explanations as well. And if you think of a lot of different events, I mean, there can be 100 reasons why a certain event happened, or even more. But for some reason, we as humans kind of center in on one or two of them. And when we center in on those, then we're unable to sort of see other points of view or other possibilities. So one way to kind of counteract attributions is to really check in with yourself about what you're thinking, and really to try to sort of, at least for a second, just kind of look at your explanation for something. And you don't have to necessarily change it if you don't want to at any point, but you can really get into kind of a healthy process with yourself if you're really checking in about what your explanation of some event is, and then being able to really kind of question that. And the reason that can be healthy is it can sort of open you up to other possibilities or other things that are potentially happening. And then you're more able to kind of interact with the other side. But there's really no harm in just trying to question the explanation that you've given yourself about why a certain event is happening. So that's really what we look at when we look at attribution. And that's oftentimes a lot of the reason behind why we have a lot of clashes in our society, whether it's in politics or social issues or things like that, where we're often really kind of buying in and believing into sort of one or two different ways of doing things without sort of opening ourselves up to other potential explanations as to why things are happening. So hopefully that was helpful today. And again, I'm Dr. B, and this is your Emotional Minutes. We will see you next time.